So in the last video, you guys saw that we got our exhaust on the car finally, so we can actually start moving that thing around. But in today's video, we actually have to install a slew of new parts onto this car so that it's ready for paint, which is coming up in almost a month now. Within this pile, we have a brand new bumper, we have new fenders, which we bought quite some time ago. We have a bunch of new parts for the front grille, so all of that is brand new. And we also got some parts to just clean up the engine bay since our parts are very old and kind of decolored, and then a bunch of new hardware and some spacers. The spacers are for the issue that we ran into in the last video, so you guys will see that in a bit. But we have to get all of this on the car today, basically start buttoning up the exterior of this car. As you can tell, our windshield washer reservoir has seen better days, so we're going to be replacing it with this brand new one. And I'm not gonna lie, this was a very hard purchase because this thing is very expensive, but I didn't want this in our new clean painted engine bay once it's done. So I thought, why not just get a new one? We just gotta start unplugging all of this, replace it on to this new one, and it should be good to go. Now, while we're focusing on the engine bay, we're also going to be switching out this coolant reservoir. And as you can see, this thing is super yellow, and this thing is how it used to look. So yeah, with this engine bay should clean up a good amount more, not look so old. So just going to do the easy stuff first. That can go on to the new one. And as you can tell, that looks so much nicer. We actually got white, and not this weird, ugly yellow, brown, whatever. So now that we have that situated, we're gonna go ahead and install the next thing, which is, I think, gonna be the spacers. In the last video, you guys saw that our wheel was actually rubbing against our coilover, as you can see right there. So we got a small 5mm spacer just to kind of counteract that issue, and with that we should be able to bring the wheels out a little bit farther so that we don't have anything rubbing anymore, and we can actually get this car out for an alignment here soon as well. Now, I'm really not sure whether or not this spacer is going to be too much. I think I could have gotten away with a 3mm, but I just wasn't sure if it was actually going to clear or not. So I went with the 5mm, and obviously these are the wheels that don't really matter too much because we have our new set of wheels right here. But now my fear is whether the new wheels are actually going to rub, and if we're going to need spacers for those. Now we just got to continue on. We're going to throw these front fenders on, and then we have a bunch of new hardware that goes across this full front apron, and then we can start bolting up that to the rear valence, put the new bumper on, see if we need to cut anything away, which I think we do, and then go from there. This is how far we've made it so far. We got our front fenders both on. We got them roughly mounted in place with a little bit of hardware. We didn't put anything down on these sides or at the bottom just yet. And that's because we might still need to remove the hardware and get these fenders back off for that front bumper piece. Now, one thing I did want to call out is that we did order some new hardware for these bumper brackets. Unfortunately, when I took mine off, nothing was actually mounted together. So these are actually what keep the bumper mounted to the fender itself, and you can actually use this for some adjustment purposes. Now, since we're doing everything properly on this car, we did go ahead and get some new hardware. We got those mounted up, and like I said, that piece is going to have to come off because this front valence actually has to come off, and we might have to end up cutting the thing. So right along this lip right here, so basically this bottom portion of the valence is hitting the bottom portion of our new bumper. So what I'm gonna try to do is separate right at this line. I think these are a bunch of like pinch welds, so I'm gonna try to drill through that and separate this thing so that I can reuse it if I ever have to. We'll just have to weld the pinch welds back together. If it's not possible, we'll just cut the entire second half of the valence and toss it, and then we'll buy a new one if we ever have to in the future. But overall, I have some good expectations on this new bumper, so I don't think we should run into any issues, and we'll get this thing placed up, but we'll have to cut that before we do anything else. So it's the next day now. I do need to unbolt this bottom one because we need to test fit the bumper and just make sure we're cutting the right things before we do anything else. So how this is gonna work is that we have the old bumper right here, and as you can tell, I took apart the trim molding that went across the face of it and loosened up this back brace. I guess you call it the bumper brace. And this will actually get mounted back up into the car before we do anything else. So this can actually just get tossed because it's pretty broken, and this is what we're working with now. Unfortunately, I didn't notice this before, but our glass here for our, I guess, turn signals are both broken, so we do need to replace those. I think we should be okay. This bumper brace is gonna fit right back up onto the car. I believe it goes something like that. We'll see if this thing fits. So, yeah. So it's hitting that lower valence, and that's exactly what we need to cut. Now, if you're running the M-Tech 2 bumper, a lot of the time you won't have to do this, but since this goes in so deep, you actually do need to cut it with this style bumper. And to get that off, we are gonna have to remove the bracket again, loosen up the fenders from that bumper bracket, and then we should be able to pull off the valence with 1, 2, and then there's 2 screws down here. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. We'll see what we need to cut. My guess is anything past the top of the valence is gonna have to get cut. So we're gonna try to leave as much material on there as possible because it is gonna act as stability for the new bumper. But if we have to cut it, we're gonna have to cut it. And then we'll see how to mount this bumper to the new bracket itself. My guess is that we're going to use those rivets that are holding on that were holding on the other bumper, but we'll see when we get to that point. So I think I got all the bolts loosened up. Got the 2 here, 2 here. The bumper bracket is now off. So the game plan here is going to be to take this valence and cut it across this entire line, so that way this entire bottom portion comes off. We don't have to worry about anything after that. With that, this top piece will get mounted back onto the car, and obviously we'll hide our wiring and whatnot, whatever we need to. This new bumper should fit on top of it, and then we can slowly start plugging everything back together that we need to. But we're not going to be doing that today, and here's why. For one, we still need to wire up our fog light. So this plug obviously does not match up with the plug, or actually the non-existent plug on the new fog light. So we actually got to tap into these wires, attach a plug so that we can disconnect and connect whenever we want to for the fog light itself. And I also want to just test fit all the bumpers in one single video. So in the next video, we're going to also throw up the rear bumper and make sure that gets mounted up and everything fits properly with that. So we'll do the front and the rears together in the next video. And for today, at least, we're going to call it here because obviously we still need to cut the front valence. We still need to do the wiring for the front fog light. And then we also need to make sure that we're prepped for the rear bumper as well, which I'm not really sure what issues we're going to run into just yet. I know more about the front so far, but we'll figure out the rear when we get there. But overall, we're looking good. I think we're making good progress. We have, if today is the 10th, we have about a month and a few days before this thing needs to be ready and good to go. So that gives us a good amount of time, and we're not rushing. So we can obviously do the work properly. So we'll continue on in the next video, and hopefully you guys stay tuned. But with that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.